Okay, so let's clean up this bottom housing now that we've kind of got a basic shell for it. I'm going to open it up in its own window. And let's kind of take a step back and look at what we've done here. I'm going to grab my back in time bar and roll it all the way back. Let's see, grab it. There we go. All the way back to the beginning. And if you'll recall, we deleted that top face, and then we came in and we extruded our screw boss, and it was down really far, all the way through our product. And we created some more features with that, and we created the other screw bosses, right? Next, we created what would be our battery housing. We rounded that off. Then we deleted one face of it, so we ended up with a big surface right here. Now, I want you to just take a snapshot of this in your mind right now, because there's more that we're going to do with these surfaces. Then we thickened that to make it solid. Then we did our surface cut to cut that stuff down just so that it would be visually nicer. And then very recently, we went ahead and created the rest of this solid body. But all of this stuff is kind of, it's not right. Obviously, it's not trimmed properly at the moment. So let's take a few steps back again. And before we do our thicken for this object, let's actually remove that thicken, because that thing doesn't have to be a solid right now. Also, I'm going to go to my surface cut where we cut all this stuff back, and I'm going to delete that as well, because I don't want to cut that stuff yet. Now we'll move forward in time and create that housing again. And you'll see that we end up with a housing, but everything else now is not trimmed the way that it used to be, which is exactly what we want, because now we can cut these things back the way that they need to be. First of all, let's deal with the bosses. So we have our surface body here that's still the exterior of our product. We can use that to trim back our bosses. So let's go to our Surfaces tab, Cut with Surface, and we're going to cut with that new surface trim this time. Not auto-select. Let's cut this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, just those. And make sure that the arrow is pointing in the correct direction. And I'm not seeing the arrow at the, oh, there it is. Right there in the corner. It's pointing inward, which is not correct. So I'm going to flip that direction. So it's cutting away the outside. Hit OK. And we're left with screw bosses that are just inside of our part, which is exactly what we want. Next, we want to create this battery housing, or the hole for this battery housing. Now, first of all, it's in the wrong place, right? We're going to have to slide our batteries a little bit forward because we're cutting into the outside of our battery door. So before we go any further, let's take this and nudge it forward. Now, we could do that by going back to our original geometry. We could go back to that original boss extrude, find that sketch, and then edit the feature and extrude it differently. But I'm kind of lazy right now. So instead, let's do something quicker. Let's go to Insert, Features, Move/Copy. And then I'll select this body from the list. I'll grab that surface body right there. And I'm not going to copy, right? Do not check copy. And then I'll just drag it forward some until I'm happy with its location. And I think that's going to be a little better. Hit OK. And now our battery housing is going to happen exactly where we need it to. Great. Now, there's two parts to this battery housing, right? We have to cut a hole in our housing, and then we need the thickness of our actual housing. So let's do that. First of all, let's create the hole. We'll go Cut with Surface, select this surface. We need to cut the inside out, which is what we did, and instead of auto-select, I want to only cut this body here. Just make sure we've got the proper body selected. Hit OK. And now we have a hole in the bottom of our housing. And I'm going to hide, actually, this exterior surface, just because that's confusing us visually. There we go. Now you see that there's a hole in our surface. And now we'll go the other direction. Now we'll go to Thicken. Let's do our Surfaces tab, Thicken. I'm going to thicken this surface out again by 2 millimeters. I'm not going to merge result. Hit OK. And then we'll trim that down to our exterior surface. So select that exterior surface, Cut with Surface. Make sure that we are cutting the correct side, which is not. We'll flip that direction so it's cutting the outside of the surface. Do not auto-select bodies. We're only going to trim this one. Hit OK. And now we have what will become our final housing. And all we have to do is combine these together. So, finally, Insert, Features, Combine. Easy enough. We'll say it's an add operation. We're going to add this to that, to that, to that, to that, to that, and OK. Now we have a finished housing with a battery compartment ready to use. We can close this up, go back to our main assembly, And I should change this back from ghosted so it's solid, and we can see we've got our two housings right together. I'm going to add a green color to this entire part at the assembly level so that we can see that really well. And I'm going to float this other piece so I can pull it away. You see that we have a housing and a door, and both of them are exactly in the right place. And furthermore, these are driven by a master model. So if we need to change a dimension of that exterior surface, we just go back to that master model and make that change, and all this stuff is going to update beautifully. Okay, let's move on.